But I had an incredible experience with a woman who came into my life, a woman I care very much about. Her name's Mira Keli. And I did, she flew all the way to Maui just because she heard I had leukemia. And she felt that if I was to be able to do a past life regression, that I could find the healing that was necessary. This was all in a perfect storm because this was at the exact same time that I was having my experience with John of God, and when I was introduced to Anita Moorjani, whom I'm going to talk to you about in a few moments, this incredible woman who had a near-death experience that really transformed not only her life, but mine as well. And Mira came to Maui and she did this regression with me. And I've never been a real big devotee of past life regression. Brian Weiss is a very close friend of mine, a man I love very much, a man I respect enormously. He'll be speaking here this weekend. And I respect his work. I've been at his workshops. We've talked about these things many times. It's just never been one of those things that have really touched me. But when I had this experience, I can still remember every single detail of what transpired with me. And I found myself back, I don't even know what the dates were, what the times were, but I was in a cave, and I was an old man with a white beard and long white hair, and I was trying to convince my son. Now this was so real to me. This isn't like a story that I made up, because I can remember everything that I was wearing, what the cave was like, what the light that was coming in. I mean, every detail of it I can give to you. And I wrote it and put it in Wishes Fulfilled because it was just such a profound influence on my life. And it was, so I was this old man, and I was trying to teach, this was several hundred years ago, probably several thousand years ago, and I was trying to teach my son, who wanted to take revenge because my wife had been murdered by people who had come into this village and killed people. Even recalling it now is emotional for me. And as I sat there and I was trying to convince him not to have hate in his heart, that when you have hate in your heart, you've got to fill your heart with love, even for those who don't agree with us and don't do what we like. I always like this passage. I brought it with me today from Jesus, from the book of Luke. If you love those who love you, what virtue lies in that? Even the morally weak love those who love them. And if you're good to those who are good to you, what virtue lies in that? Even the morally weak do that. Love your enemies. Be good to them. Share with them without expecting anything in return. Then your reward will be rich, and you will be sons of the Most High. He is kind to the ungrateful and the wicked. Be compassionate like your Father. Be compassionate like your Father. I was trying to teach that, and I had such a vision of that man that I was at another time, who knows when. And then this woman, Mira, is from Bulgaria. And Peter Dønov is this great spiritual teacher. Einstein said of Peter Dønov, how many people in the room have heard of Peter Dønov? It's like 1%, maybe 10, 15 people in this room of 3,000 people. Peter Dønov, Albert Einstein said of Peter Dønov at the height of his popularity, when he had just published his theory of relativity, he said, "The whole world bows before me, and I bow before Peter Dønov." And he actually lived part of his life in my lifetime. He died in 1944, so our lives overlapped. But one of the things you learn when you start to study this is that there's no such thing as time, which means there's no past, which means there's no future, which means all there is now, which means lives can overlap. It's a hard concept to even get into, but it intrigues me to no end. So her mother is also from Bulgaria, and her mother was in Bulgaria, and she brought back a book written by about Peter Dønov, great big book with his picture on the front. And when she handed me the picture, I almost collapsed, because it was exactly the image that I had had of myself trying to teach divine love to my son and to everyone else through this light that was coming through, that was so bright that I was in, but I couldn't get my son, who was in his 50s, I couldn't get him to move into it with me. And that entire dialogue is in there. What I have